right, this is Bob Coppage, CEO Simplex-IT, Crouchio Geek, and welcome to another episode of Biz-Tech Twists, where we try to take a look at business technology, but from a slightly different perspective. And different is the word that comes to mind with our guest today. Actually, Dave Cowan, who's President, CEO, Grand Poobah over at PSS Innovations. Hello, Dave.
Hello, Bob.
I want to thank you very much for coming here and being a guest on my podcast. This should be fun.
Have you done this before?
Yes. Yes, I have.
That's too bad.
So here's the thing is, well, first of all, PSS Innovations, why don't you give a brief description of that organization, and we'll get into why we're talking.
Sure, thanks. We're kind of a family-owned business here in Cleveland for 40 years. We're really kind of a think tank, and we come up with safety solutions to save lives, both on highways, work zones, and for pedestrians. So we don't really make anything. We just kind of sit around a big table and we think up better ways to do things. And then we have other people make them for us because we don't know how to do that.
So you do a lot of thinking.
We would like people to think so.
Oh, okay. So everybody gets away with this whole thinking thing. But if those listening, if you haven't figured out by now, there's humor in just about everything that's been said so far. And that's actually the topic for the day. And that is humor in the workplace, but really from an executive standpoint. And it's one of the things, Dave, you and I have worked together now for a little over a year or so. Well,
It seems longer.
It really does. But one of the things is you guys actually have humor as a core value for your organization, which I find fascinating. Can you delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, we do. It was a fascinating exercise when we sat down and said, we kind of do things a certain way. We'll call them values. What are those? And we kind of all wrote on a sheet of paper. And I remember thinking, why is it that I like coming to work? We save lives, you come up with products, but I have fun. I like to have some fun internally. It's humor. And so one of the values I put down was humor, having fun. And that actually made the final cut.
But over Simplex-IT, we do humor all over the place, but I never thought of the idea of putting it as a core value. And whenever people talk about core values, there's always that, why would you want to work there? Why would you want to work with this organization or the like? And you always hear it's fun, but you never hear the actual humor part of it. And you're the first company I've ever heard that has actually done that.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about the best asset of the corporation are the employees, right. And employee retention is a big deal, especially in this time when, you lose somebody, it's really tough. So
that's why we put trackers on them. So if we find them.
Do they wander?
Oh boy, do they wander.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. The rest of the 30 minutes here is going to be more of this, folks. So yeah. Bear with us.
Well, kind of a fun short story of interviewing people. So when it comes to me, I'm the last person in line that will do an interview for a new person, for a prospective employee. And when it gets to me, they say, Dave, all we want you to do, we want you to get into the weeds and can you do a debit and a credit? We want you just to say, will they fit in with this organization?
Right.
And so I go in, this is a pandemic. I sit down. I've got a purchasing manager slot. Person sits down. We're COVID, so we're way across the table. And we exchange pleasantries. And I say, so how's it been going so far? I don't finish the sentence, and she just breaks out laughing. I mean, hysterically laughing. And, of course, I'm playing the straight man, and I have no idea. And I look down at my shirt, and I'm going, did I, spill marinara sauce, all over? What is wrong? Yeah. And I get this very confused look on my face, and I say, why are you laughing? I mean, you think this is a very stressful situation, right? I'm the president of the company. She is trying to get a job here, and she's laughing right at me. And she goes, your coffee mug. I love it. So I got this mug from a so-called friend for Christmas, and it says on it, Employee of the Month, runner-up. I take it everywhere.
Yeah.
And I brought it into the interview and I put it down. And I think it does send a signal. I don't take myself too seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not this important guy. I'm not all that in a bag of chips. And she loved it. And I looked and I saw the mug for the first time. I said, I love the mug too. It makes me want to do better next month. She was in hysterics. I could have stopped the interview right there.
Yeah.
It wasn't a minute. And I knew right then, I said, this person is going to fit in. This person.
They get it.
They get it. They get it. And I just thought of different things to talk about for the next 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And we hired her.
Cool. And it's interesting because there is that automatic connection. And sometimes you could also have a person who is either they're so serious that they're going to take everything so seriously that everything's going to be an emergency or everything's going to be a whatever. And not that emergencies aren't to be taken seriously, but they still have to have a certain, we're going to get through this. And one of the best ways to communicate that is with humor. For example, and for those of you who are listening, I'm getting out a prop. This is when I knew we were going to be a fit.
Oh my God.
So PSS Innovations is a client of Simplex-IT. And when we first, we love tchotchkes. We love giving away tchotchkes. And one of the tchotchkes we give away is this neat little LED lamp. And we were meeting with your team for the first time. So there was no agreement, no nothing at that point. And it's in a conference room with no lights. Oh, excuse me, with no windows.
No windows.
There were lights to begin with.
In the beginning, there were.
There were. And then the power went out. And which was something that was happening, not because of anything in your building, but because of the neighborhood that you were in. And you have that situation where, from your standpoint, you're trying to get business done. You're trying to hopefully make an impression on us, whatever you want to call that. We're in a situation where we're trying to create a relationship. We're also trying to figure out exactly how this relationship's going to work, how professionally we're going to get along, and we're going to do this in the dark. But we had this tchotchke, and we just started making jokes. Nobody got even remotely upset. And that was the cool thing. I think from our standpoint, it was like, wow, we recognize the severity of it. We recognize the challenge, but we got out the lanterns. We made jokes about the lanterns and all that, but continued the conversation.
No, I remember it well. I think the meeting went over 2 hours, and I knew right away, this is a company I want to do business with. That's important to me, because when you get into those situations with no lights, and in IT, that happens to you guys a lot, you want to be able to have a conversation with somebody knowing that they're not going to fly off the rails.
Right.
They're going to be able to deal with it. And maybe we proved ourselves there. So you're right. It was we were looking at you, and you guys
once we got the light on, the lantern on.
I couldn't see you.
Yeah,
I said, Bob, and you had to say over here.
Yeah.
But once the lights came back on.
By the way, that was Patty who said over here. That wasn't me.
That was it.
Yeah, just saying.
I thought so. So, yeah, there's and partly I use humor for that. I want to make a connection with, if it's a supplier coming in, I want them not just to have a transactional relationship.
Right.
I want them to want to do business with us.
And you could also have a situation or circumstance where someone is going to be so ultra serious about that situation, and it's not necessarily inappropriate, but it's not a good fit. And so when you see how someone reacts to that, and someone says immediately, wow, go do this, go do that, I'm so sorry, we'll have to reschedule, we'll have to do all that kind of fun stuff, and not seeing the lightness, again, of that situation, then you get that insight that that's not a good fit. So it's kind of the same thing as you were saying for hiring. You can look for that acceptance of humor, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, we use it. It's used all the time.
Yeah. And the nice thing also from my standpoint is when we talk about humor, you can have one way or one person humor, and you can have two person humor. The one person humor is, well, I will say something that yuck, yuck, yuck is funny, and then that's it. So I told the joke, other people, or I said the funny thing or whatever, and that's great. It's a good way to relieve stress and the like, but the wonderful ones are the two persons where one person says something and it's starting to get funny, but then somebody else adds to it and says the second part, and that makes it funnier, and then somebody else adds the third part. And it's a different form of collaboration, but it's a way of working and exercising the collaboration muscles so that same team can go out and really solve some interesting business processes with the exact same muscles.
You're kind of describing improv comedy when you have an idea and it's not planned out and you just throw it out there. But business is a lot of improv. You got a problem that comes up. You got to brainstorm. So I do see a lot of similarities. In getting humor, as you say. It's not going in and telling a joke and walking back out. That doesn't do it.
I will go one step further and basically say that business, if it is not improv, it's commodity. Because you're doing something the same way over and over and over again, and that's what competition can copy. That's what, and it's great from you were saying earlier, it's great from that transactional standpoint. But if you're going to have an organization such as yours, where you're going to sit around the table, you're going to come up with ideas. If you sit around the table and you wait for person one to come up with an idea, that's it. We're done. The idea is there. Let's move forward. Yeah, that might be nice, and you might have that one genius person, and everybody could be a genius person at different times, but when you have that one person, and then in improv, there's that yes and rule.
Yes and.
Yeah, you basically, you agree with it, whatever the first thing that's offered, and you add to it, and you make it better.
New product designs, it follows the same format. Yeah. Somebody will have the beginning of an idea and say, but wait a minute, but had you thought about this? And then by the end of that hour or whatever, it has gone through a metamorphosis to come out with something that's pretty cool.
And that same group can tell a story about what happened or what could have happened or what would be neat. It would have everybody rolling on the floor. But they'd be using the exact same muscles, the exact same creativity. And since they know everybody's going to support each other in doing that, so the humor ends up being the exercise muscle for that type of collaboration. I actually never thought of that before.
Yeah, it's really very similar. And sometimes we do get off the rails, so that you got to be a little careful on that in some meetings, and they go on. So you got to call Elmo. Let's move on, right? But
I've never heard that one either. Yeah, okay, that's good.
That's enough. Let's move on, Elmo. So we got to do that quite a bit, but
that's true. But that's true in any circumstance. If you're going to have a truly collaborative arrangement, you always have that risk of either we're going down the rabbit hole, we're infatuated on one target or one fact or one restriction or whatever. So just because you're being collaborative and just because you're doing things, again, from the humor standpoint or the like, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the Elmo situation. That's interesting. I like that. So how do you train people? So if you have somebody, you basically say they want, because there's a lot of people out there who want to be funny. And I don't mean necessarily as I want to be a stand-up, but I don't know how. But I want to be, I'm just not sure about how to join in or whether or not I'm going to be. How do you encourage that person to get out of their shell?
Well, I think part of it is that there is no, like, you have to be funny. There is not that expectation. Right. It's like, we want you to understand and accept and laugh a little bit.
Okay. So you start with the yes.
You start to the yes. The and, I think, comes with time and comes with seeing how it's done and just seeing how people interact.
And the and doesn't necessarily have to be funny, ha-ha, knee slap. It can sometimes just add in terms of it adds function or it adds flavor or content to the first statement. And one of the things that I've done, I haven't done it for a few years, but I did improv for like 15 years or so. And one of the first things I would always teach people is it's entertainment first, it's comedy second. And I think humor to a certain degree is that as well. And especially if someone's already added to the humor, because sometimes you can add to that with that and. And again, this is true in work as well, where all you're doing is just adding agreements to the first person or to the first step. That's interesting. And I don't see, and I've seen it in a couple of cities, but I don't see a lot of courses or training or the like for this type of thing. And I wonder if that's an opportunity that's being missed, or a need that's being missed.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, well, we're going to send you a course to be funny.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds awkward, actually. It's like you're not that good looking. We're going to send you to dress you up a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. We gave up on the good looking.
Yeah,
part.
we gave up on that. No,
we can only turn out the electricity so often.
But when bringing people out, it's like I'll just throw out questions. I'll say something kind of dumb and then say, "Well, what do you think, Bob?" And then you have to sit there, and now you're in the improv. Now you got to answer like, "Well, how do I answer that question?"
Right.
And so I'll do that a lot just to get them, trying to say, just what do you think about that situation?
Uh-huh. Okay, so you lob the softballs. You
Exactly.
lob
You have to do
real
that.
light
Right.
runs, all that. And when see this is interesting because there's some people who are so dry, and you also have to. So this is actually another. I'm going to shut up and start over. So what are some of the guardrails? Now you mentioned one. If it goes off, if it goes off in tangents and never productive, you also there have to be some rules. It can't be snarky. It can't be that's just derogatory towards anyone or anything.
Absolutely. No, yeah, we're not going to make fun of anybody.
Right.
None of that. So otherwise we visit HR and they don't have the best sense of humor over there. Well, they're not really supposed to. I mean,
Right.
It's not their job.
But I would also make the point, it's not just that we have to watch out for HR, but it then becomes a defensive thing. And it breaks into the productivity. Because if someone is essentially, because 50% of the people in the room are going to disagree with certain key aspects of life. You've got the whole, religion, politics, gender, whatever. And there are so many other things that you can make fun of. You can introduce humor that are not going to be threatening or the like. Because what you don't want people is you don't want to have people going, "Oh, I'm offended by that." Therefore, because what's going to happen? They're either going to attack or they're going to pull back and withdraw. Neither of which really helps the organization. But what I do want to do to help the organization is I want to take a commercial break, and we will be right back because we have more humor, some of which might be funny.
Maybe.
I
don't know.
Are you fed up with reactive IT providers who take too long to respond, let problems fester, and nickel and dime you for every little thing? Say goodbye to those frustrations by choosing Simplex-IT, home of Amazon's best-selling author and Biz-Tech Twist host Bob Coppage. As Northeast Ohio's friendly neighborhood MSP, Simplex-IT has been providing top-notch managed and co-managed IT services since 2007, supporting hundreds of clients locally and across the United States. With a managed service provider like Simplex-IT, you'll benefit from proactive maintenance, 24/7 monitoring, and streamlined technology that will help you grow your business. Visit simplex-it.com for more information and to start experiencing stress-free IT today.
And we're back, like it or not, with Dave Cowan of PSS Innovations, and we're talking about humor and business and stuff, including lights. So I want to switch channels a little bit with you and talk about externally facing humor. And by that, I'm talking about from a sales and marketing standpoint. Because quite honestly, I've seen some of your marketing stuff on LinkedIn and the web and all that, and it's good, but it's not funny. So the sense of humor really doesn't, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, because I can see both sides of the fence. Our marketing, we think, is occasionally funny. Not always, and not always where we meant it to be funny, but yours isn't. Is that a conscious choice?
Yeah, I think the twist that we got to play with is that we're dealing with work zone products. We're dealing with products that prevent cars from hitting people. And so when you start talking about kind of life-saving stuff, kind of serious stuff, distracted driving is a huge problem in this country, and we have products to address that. Also, we're kind of marketing also to the departments of transportation. So it's a little different than going after like private businesses.
Right.
We do some of that, but I think it's more about the type of products and what they do that it seems almost cringeworthy if we start talking about something funny about distracted driving. because there's really nothing funny about it, just because of the fatalities. Once you start to introduce that and thinking that there are people dying out there, that's where the comedy gets put in the back seat.
Okay. So bottom line is you have to take whatever your messaging is, which is after all marketing, you have to take into a consideration what's the context going to be when it's interpreted by people. And you have to be, and you can't be 100%. It can never be misinterpreted because then we'll never produce or we'll never write anything. But it gets back to that, what would the reasonable person think? And if you get into a situation where there's actually harm that happened, then reviewing your materials is actually going to negatively influence. So that makes sense. On our side, we try to, so we love the use of metaphors and stories and the like. So we will talk, but in our case, first of all, I shouldn't say we're never, because we deal with some industries where they are involved with life-saving issues or certainly very large-scale economic issues, cybersecurity and the like. So we walk that fine line where we exaggerate tremendously what it is we're talking about. So it's the parody is off the scale, relatively speaking, or we're talking about it from a perspective we make fun of our industry. So we try to deal with it a little, but we've got more leeway than I think you would have in your industry. So that's and also we do April Fools.
What'd you do this year?
We actually did a video for Sarcasm as a Service. So it's a new monthly.
You can pay for it?
Well, you signed up for it, so yeah.
I did?
Yeah.
Was it in the contract?
It is now.
Oof.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. You're welcome.
And see, here's the thing, and this is a good example of that give and take. Okay, I know you well enough that I could say you signed up for it. Whereas if I'm talking to someone that I don't have that banter with, then if I say you signed up for it and they go, wait, what?
What?
I don't recall approving that.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Just want to make sure this is not
Right.
serious. But that's one of the key things. And from an organizational thing, getting back to that cultural thing, you have those initial moments like when the candidate was laughing and you're like, I don't understand why this laughter is coming out so much. And then when she did, hey, everything's great. And similarly, the lights are going out. What should we do, party A and party B, because we don't have that familiarity? Once you start getting that familiarity, the gates start to open. And the sandbox, there still is a sandbox. There still are borders. But you now know I can have this much fun or that much fun or so on. And there's a friend of mine in the industry who was at a conference and he was there and we were talking. And he said, I know this funny joke. This is an absolutely hilarious joke. And I said, well, tell it to me because, oh, man, it's totally, it's horribly inappropriate. And this is one of the nicest guys I know, just absolutely one of the nicest guys I know. I said, no, tell me about it. And I prodded him and he said, okay, fine. But, and we had to step away because we were at the hotel bar and we had to step away. He told me the joke. It is the most offensive joke I have ever heard in my life. It truly is. But it is also technically one of the funniest jokes I have ever heard. It just happens to be something that there are certain people who are going to be offended by it. And so it's one of those where I have told the joke twice since then. And, a good joke, you tell a good joke over and over. And in both cases, I've told those people, this is the worst, most offensive joke. And I make sure I'm not being recorded. I am not in a group. I am not, nothing. I am, and I've told the joke twice. And it is truly one of those where I've never had a joke where I've had to manage the telling of it so much.
It sounds like a minefield.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm very, very careful where I step with it.
Can you tell it on a podcast?
Yes, I could, but only if it's not recorded, if it's not broadcast, and ain't going to happen right now.
Okay, we'll just scratch that one then.
Absolutely. But it is funny. It is funny. But it's one of those where, again, in that case, the content was so offensive that only people who really would appreciate the technicality of the joke would I tell that to, and that I was comfortable that the content would not offend them, and giving them plenty of warning. Whereas in other cases, and this kind of gets back to the marketing question and the sales question, we're not going to take that chance because there are so many people who can participate that we could inadvertently and totally innocently offend.
That's a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Absolutely, for all the right reasons. This is not something where you're sitting back going, "Oh, I want to be so mean and this, that, or the other thing," but we won't be because we're going to hide ourselves. It's you truly don't want to upset people in situations and times where they could be dealing with some serious stuff. So it makes absolute perfect sense. And that, again, gets back from my standpoint to that whole business. It's an executive service. It's an executive value. It's an executive thing that I don't think comedy and humor usually is.
Yeah, and I do think it makes, from the CEO standpoint, because let's face it, we're pretty powerful. We're kind of the 800-pound gorilla. If we wanted to, we just fire anybody at will. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You wore those sneakers, you're gone.
And you did look at my sneakers
I
before
did.
you said that.
Yeah. So we're intimidating.
Right.
But if you want true dialogue, if you don't want a bunch of yes men working for you, which I don't, it's you got to break that down somehow.
Okay, why do you not want yes men working for you?
Because
that's a serious question.
Yeah, because I want to do better, and
Right.
if people just tell me what I want to hear, then we're not going to do a lot of changing,
Right.
and we're not going to come up with a lot of new products. So I don't want a lot of yes men. I want people that will speak truth to power. I want people that feel open to discuss. And I think humor does help to break that down, to make you more relatable as a CEO.
Again, as long as the humor is not used against, I hate to say against the people, but are not used to intimidate or to insult or anything. One of my rules is always, 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 always humor. If it's derogative to anybody, it's derogative to me.
Well, you want to punch up. Don't be punching down.
Yep.
That's right. No, that's absolutely true.
Yep.
So, and for me, it's making fun of myself a lot.
Yeah. Well, your case,
it's easy.
Yeah, it really is.
And I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room, but of
Yeah.
course, and I'm usually not, except of course for today, because you're here. So, what?
No,
It's okay.
It's
No, you're pretty smart.
I'm smartish.
I think so. I think so. But I do think that does help. The humor does help to bring that down so that people are more comfortable
Right.
in saying, hey, we might want to change this aspect of this product or this, whatever the process was. I think they're more willing to say that so that they know you're not going to get mad. You're not going to retaliate. So
again, we're talking about humor as that collaboration juice or elixir or whatever. And it's funny because I was just thinking that back in the day, and probably still in some cases, but it was golf or it was alcohol or it was let's go to the bar or let's go do this, that, or the other thing. And now I think we may be looking for that elixir. A lot of companies are and especially the work from anywhere concepts and all of the stress that everybody's going through. And a lot of the traditional things have either vanished. Not everybody plays golf or is frowned upon. Certainly not everybody wants to go out and get drunk or have drinks at the office all the time, or hopefully not. So what do we have now?
How do you collaborate? How do you
Yeah.
have a little bit of fun?
Right. And humor, again, it's tough to just say, all right, starting today.
Everybody's going to be funny.
Right. It's going to happen.
Yes.
All right.
So, Julie, let's be funny now.
Okay. You only told 7 puns and 2 jokes.
And they weren't that funny.
They really weren't. No. So we're putting you on a humor suspension.
That just doesn't work.
But you could see a company almost trying that. I mean, hopefully never to that extreme, but to basically say this message from on high, from now on, we're going to be funny. Okay, so let's put you on the hot seat. You're talking to an executive, and he basically, or she's saying, yeah, we don't have humor. It's gallows. Everybody's waiting for the thing to fall. I need to introduce some levity. I need to introduce some humor. I was thinking of bringing a comedian in, or I'm thinking, what would you advise that person to start moving into a humorous corporate value or the like?
Yeah, this is, trying to change culture. It's like trying to steer a battleship.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen overnight. That's for sure. And part of it is just personality, I think. We're all kind of programmed a certain way. I think that's just nature.
Mm-hmm.
So it is hard if someone is struggling with that. I think, do you bring somebody in? I don't know.
Who would it be?
Right. And then who is that? You hand them a joke book and say, here, say a few of these before, this public speaking. I was supposed to say a joke, and that kind of helps you and helps the audience. Short of that, it's hard to say, well, when you're in this situation, when they say that, you should not punch down. This is not easy. The how is harder.
Yeah.
Than the why. I think the why to do it, I think those reasons are valid.
Pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward. The how, that's another podcast. That is really, that you start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Why are you funny? How does that work?
And I guess you could almost look at it from the standpoint of, you first and possibly foremost, don't worry about the humor. Don't worry about funny. Start creating an environment where people can feel open to be funny. Not that is a goal, but that the sandbox is created. So you basically say, look, like you say, you can punch up.
Yeah, it's a safe space.
Yeah.
So you're going to say something, and it may not be the funniest thing, but we're not going to go, well, that was bad.
Yeah.
Go to your corner,
Yeah. And that whole thing, we no longer, and especially, nobody can punch down anymore. To say something like that, I think is appropriate, to basically talk to your people, and whether that's a one-on-one or organizational or whatever, but it's got to start from the top. That we're going to create a culture that's going to be more understanding, that's going to be more relaxed. And I think you could almost make the case, now this is dependent upon the type of people you got there, because you either have people who thrive in that type of repressed situation, in which case, first of all, they're never going to work for me, but they will react negatively to this. And similarly, people who are on a power trip, who know, I want to be able to call my people names or to make fun of them at meetings, because that's the way everybody knows I do that. I mean, come on, and to introduce, basically say, here are the guardrails for how we need to behave and how we need to allow people to do things. I think that might be something of a first step, but you're right. It's another topic entirely.
That's a whole nother topic. I think people like to laugh. The thing is, it's not on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's freshman year college. Yeah. There were only 5. There's been some inflation. There may be 6 or 7 at this point, but humor is not in it.
I think
laughing,
one's Amazon.
It might be.
Yeah.
Did they add that?
Oh, I think they did.
I think so.
Amazon did anyway.
So you got 5 of them. Laughing is you're not going to die if you don't laugh, but people need that. We're all in stressful environments, and I've noticed I'll come in, say something stupid, and I get them to laugh. And it's like they're just, blood pressure comes down a little bit. It's like, hey, we're going to make it through this. Hang in there.
Yeah.
Give them a laugh, and then get the heck out, because they're the ones doing all the work.
And there's a difference between coming and saying something, and there's a difference between that and gallows humor. The gallows humor about
what the dire thing, and with IT with you guys, I can't even imagine. Everything's a brush fire for you guys. How many crises do you go through in a day?
14.
That's it?
Well, and then I get to the office.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, then I open my email.
Oof.
Yeah. So, one piece of advice you would give to, well, first of all, to an
CEO?
executive, to a
Don't
CEO.
don't take yourself too seriously.
And make that a project if you need to.
Don't.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just to a general employee who just can't be funny, or it's a challenge for them. And I can see it being a challenge for them because they don't feel comfortable doing it, or they don't feel like, whether I hate to say they're the problem or the organization is the problem, but where they just don't feel like they can be funny. Everybody else is, but they're not. And where they don't feel they can be funny because nobody is. So those two situations.
Be open-minded and really listen to people when they talk.
Okay. I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry. You weren't paying attention, were you? Because a lot of times they'll have blinders on and people want to say what they want to say.
Right.
And they're not really interested. But the humor that, for me, it's all about them. It's listening to them.
So it gets back to that yes and.
Yes.
If it's
And
yes, that's tough. Because I'm going to be funny, then you're going to be funny in whatever way you were already thinking about doing it. And you could also make the same claim about that from a collaboration standpoint. I've got my idea on how to address this situation. That's great. You've got your idea. We didn't listen to each other. Therefore, there's no way we can take the goods and the bads and work them together to make the best situation. Same thing from a humor standpoint. It's kind of like having two stand-up comedians at the same time. One tells a joke and another one tells a totally different joke. Not going to be great.
Right. Got to listen.
Absolutely. So, cool. Any last words? Okay, guess not. No, any last words?
No, this has been great. It's been fun to think about this
Yeah.
because I do tend to use it a lot, maybe more than I should. But I like it. It gets me through the day, and nobody's going to tell me not to.
Yeah.
So what the heck?
And how would you measure more than I should?
Right.
I mean, for anything.
What would be too much?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So,
Right.
cool. Dave, thanks you so much for this. Really was a cool topic, and as you can tell, it had a lot to do with technology.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe next time.
Maybe next time. No, absolutely. It was spot on for what I wanted to talk about. So Dave Cowan, PSS Innovations, thank you much for joining the latest episode of Biz-Tech Twists. Once again, this is Bob Coppage. And you know the drill. You're supposed to ring bells and click likes and comment on this thing, share it with other people. You're supposed to put flyers about the podcast throughout your neighborhood on telephone poles. And I think also you're supposed to hire a skywriter and have the sky, unless there's one already going on, because you don't want to, you couldn't read it because it get all mixed up and all that. So if there's already a skywriter going on, you're too late. Think about that. Catch you later.